following story is amazing and should be shared with everyone you know. The US government has been complicit in many cover-ups, but this is by far one of the most compelling accounts. Operation High Jump put nearly 5,000 US military personnel, along with every resource available to the Navy's disposal, in the hands of Admiral Richard Byrd, the operations leader of the US naval mission into the Antarctic. Think about that for a moment and let it sink in. Every resource in the entire US Navy was made readily available for Admiral Byrd's team's use. Although Byrd was chosen to lead the mission for a rather specific reason, which I will later explain, he was quite qualified and a favorite amongst the American public, the perfect candidate of choice by US Navy and top brass. Additionally to Byrd's recruitment, another man, Rear Admiral Richard Cruzen, was selected to head up the task force. And make no mistake, this was an unusually bold move for the American military at the time, as people, nations, and even world economies were still volatile from war's aftermath. So we have to ask the following questions. Why would the US military be seeking to expend so many resources at the risk of great collateral loss, to explore such a harsh region of the planet Earth as Antarctica? What was the rush? What did they know? What we find is that a lot of the details regarding Operation High Jump have been carefully tucked away over the years. Wikipedia explains little about the mission, officially titled the United States Navy Antarctic Developments Program, 1946 to 1947. A United States naval operation organized by Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd Jr., USN retired, officer in charge, Task Force 68, and led by Rear Admiral Richard H. Cruzen, USN commanding officer, Task Force 68. Operation High Jump commenced August 26, 1946 and ended in late February 1947. Task Force 68 included 4,700 men, 13 ships, and multiple aircraft. The primary mission of Operation High Jump was to establish the Antarctic research base Little America 4. High Jump's objectives, according to the U.S. Navy's report on the operation, were as follows: training personnel and testing equipment in frigid conditions, consolidating and extending United States sovereignty over the largest practicable area of the Antarctic continent. This was publicly denied as a goal even before the expedition ended. Determining the feasibility of establishing, maintaining, and utilizing bases in the Antarctic and investigating possible base sites. Developing techniques for establishing, maintaining, and utilizing air bases on ice, with particular attention to later applicability of such techniques to operations in interior Greenland, where conditions are comparable to those in the Antarctic. Amplifying existing stores of knowledge of hydrographic, geographic, geological, meteorological, and electromagnetic propagation conditions in the area. Supplementary objectives of the Nanook expedition. The Nanook operation was a smaller equivalent conducted off eastern Greenland. Interestingly enough, many of the actual mission details were shrouded by secrecy, hidden from the American public, which leads us to where we are now. An excerpt from a report entitled The Antarctica Enigma reads: little other information was released to the media about the mission, although most journalists were suspicious of its true purpose, given the huge amount of military hardware involved. The U.S. Navy also strongly emphasized that Operation High Jump was going to be a Navy show. Admiral Ramsey's preliminary orders of August 26, 1946 stated that, the Chief of Naval Operations only will deal with other governmental agencies and that no diplomatic negotiations are required. No foreign observers will be accepted. Not exactly an invitation to scrutiny, even from other arms of the government. Admiral Byrd was a strategic choice as he was a national hero to the Americans. He had pioneered the technology that would be a foundation for modern polar exploration and investigation, had been repeatedly decorated and had undertaken many expeditions to Antarctica, and was also the first man to fly over both poles. However, the task force itself remained strictly under the military command of Rear Admiral Richard Cruzen. Unfortunately, the ship's central group entered the ice pack off the Ross Sea on December 31, 1946, and found conditions as bad as had been noted for over a century. Sea breakers such as the USCG Burton Island, a ship that had only recently been commissioned and was still undergoing sea trials off the California coast when Operation High Jump was launched, fought to cut a way through the ice to help the men land. Richard Cruzen was one of a few men to have located at several oases which were actually the real reason the expedition team was sent there in the first place, although at the time only those with the top secret clearance would truly know the mission's true objective. An excerpt from the Daviess County Historical Society reads: according to a Navy report, 1,000 miles of new coastline was discovered on exploratory trips by the Bear and Bird seaplane. Commended by Secretary of the Navy Frank Knox for his superior seamanship, ability, courage, determination, efficiency, and good judgment in dangerous emergencies, Cruzen was one of the 16 members of the 1939–1941 expedition who received the Antarctic Expedition Medal, presented in November 1946. On December 2, 1946, Cruzen once more set sail for the Antarctic continent. This time, as Task Force Commander under Admiral Byrd of the Navy's Antarctic Developments Project, also known as Operation High Jump, Cruzen led a force of 13 ships carrying some 4,000 men, including meteorologists, zoologists, physicists, and experts from oceanography institutes into the adventure of a lifetime. Besides looking for new scientific data, another purpose of the expedition was to train Navy personnel and to test standard Navy ships and other equipment in cold weather operations. Cruzen navigated through an ice pack of several hundred miles before reaching Little America. Icebergs and unpredictable weather were formidable foes during the course of the expedition. Among the discoveries made during the 1946–1947 expedition was the sighting of 2 oases, one a region of ice-free lakes and land. More than 300,000 square miles of unpathed territory were charted on aerial mapping operations. Their observations proved that radical changes would have to be made on existing maps of the Antarctic. Why would warm spots, with warm water, exist in the Antarctic? What does this mean? The Hollow Earth theory. Researchers such as Dr. Brooks Agnew and others have deeply considered the possibility that the Earth itself could be hollow or egg-like. Although this theory seems hard to comprehend because you have been told exactly opposite your entire life, in school, and so on. Entertain this idea for a moment. What if the Earth was hollow? Would that be possible? Is there evidence to back this up? The answer is yes. Evidence shows that the Earth rings like a bell after an earthquake for a period of up to about 60 minutes, and that's why some scientists and researchers say that this is due to the fact that the Earth is hollow. If the Earth had a solid core, when an earthquake happened, it would likely absorb all of the vibration and not resonate it. This is just one detail that should open your mind to the possibility that a hollow planet is a possibility. Famous author and lecturer, David Icke, explains in his book, Moon Matrix, exactly how the moon is likely hollow as well. While Icke has been received lately harshly with criticisms, an ActivistPost.com article points out how Icke believes that the moon is an interdimensional, intensity portal for entities and energies from other dimensions. He believes that aliens use the moon as a home base for hijacking signals from the universe so that our bodily forms that are experiencing this virtual reality on Earth can't fully experience what our Creator meant for it to be. These aliens are the same reptilian shapeshifters that Icke claims are responsible for much of the suffering on our planet. Reptilians want to filter anything beyond our five senses so that it manipulates what kind of world we can experience. I myself have had the privilege of interviewing David Icke and other Hollow Earth experts, such as Rodney Clough and Dr. Brooks Agnew, personally, pushing me further into accepting that this theory may be more than just a theory. Virtually every culture and civilization across the planet, throughout time, has documented what appears to be the existence of a hollow earth. According to Dr. Brooks Agnew, who I have personally interviewed many times, a hollow earth is a very real possibility. Agnew has focused his studies to the North Pole region, as him and his team plan to one day locate a documented polar depression, thus launching test overflights from a nuclear-powered icebreaker. Brooks and his team plan a scientific expedition to the brim of the hollow earth, which proves to be unsuccessful at this time due to a lack of funding. Brooks plans to use a sun compass and a gyroscope above the 60th parallel to get accurate measurements of the oceanic depression. If the rate of change begins to increase, then likely the team would be entering the long elusive polar depression, which has been reported by ancient Viking explorers and modern-day seamen alike. Moreover, during an interview on Red Ice Radio, Agnew talked about the formation of planets, Sir Isaac Newton, and the difference between thick and thin crust physics, zero gravity, and more. The episode is very interesting to say the least. Essentially what Agnew was talking about is what's known as a rather large graviton. You know, those rides at the county fair that spin real fast? They stick you to the wall, then the floor lowers. Oh boy, I can smell the funnel cake and the cotton candy now. Do you think a hollow earth is possible? In the interview, Agnew continues to get into the possibility of a hollow earth, questioning the possibility of advanced life within. Agnew explains how migration patterns of birds could be proof that something to the nature of a hollow earth exists, as birds migrate north for winter in some cases, retreating to a warm area in the polar region. Additionally, it has been reported that the U.S. Navy encountered several UFOs during the Antarctic expedition, and possibly may have had a firefight with at least one of them. A brief clip of this was allegedly caught on film. Some also speculate that mermaids and other rare creatures may derive from the inner earth, sometimes making their way into the upper waters divided by the firmament as mentioned in the Bible.